And so it is here, in this small alley, this crack in the veneer of an otherwise blanketed city, where the thing that brought seed to fall and meet soil came to be, and our story germinated. In this alley lay a modest blacksmith shop where Hubert von Herkomer worked with his father every day. He had never known his mother, or anyone else for that matter, his whole young life. His father, a sullen man who, as it seemed, enjoyed only the dark and smoky confines of his workshop, assumed without question his son would follow him in life. Never leaving the shop, Hubert's only view of the world were these small set of rooms, as evidenced by an early drawing here. It was not until a bit later that Hubert brought beneath the cuff of his pants a small tool to his room, removed one of the boards that sealed the window, and snuck in a small bit of the world outside. It was a spring morning when he witnessed this small bit of public life, which he put down in the pages of his diary. This vision never seemed to leave him, though he was not able to muster the courage to do anything about it until his 17th birthday. The night before, while his father lay passed out from drinking, he grabbed what money he could find and climbed through his window into the crisp and smokeless air of the outside. He found a nearby train station and took the first train he could afford out of the city. Things that he had never viewed flew past him with incredible speed, flooding him to the point where he too passed out. When he awoke, he found himself well beyond the city and in the sprawling countryside. The train began to slow and came to a full stop at a station overlooking a garden. The expanse before him was enough to move him to his feet, but it was the fine and delicate way in which this garden was manicured that compelled him to disembark. After the train pulled away, the sound of its engines faded, and the smell it left behind was swept clean by the breeze. Hubert stood transfixed, and for the first time in his life was both free and alone. Standing at the top of these stairs, Hubert surveyed his surroundings and descended into the garden. It was with a gravity beyond his understanding that he was pulled into its folds. The bracing smell of cut evergreens stung his eyes, the tonic of the air rippled his scalp, his palms sweat and his ears rang, and as he rounded the corner his chest nearly burst. What happened next is unclear. When he awoke, he was entirely nude and caught in the arms of a girl some years his junior. Staring up at her, haloed in sunlight, and with a look on her face particularly serene, unknowably familiar, he felt that he had died, and then realizing he hadn't, immediately sat up. Marta Pentala, this young lady, seemed, after the initial shock of his awakening, to accept the unusual nature of the circumstances as gracefully as he. However, what brought her to this place this fortuitous morning were a set of completely different events. Hers were issues of being scorned and misunderstood. In the loneliest pit of anguish she found herself before this glowing, enraptured, and unexplainably nude young man, who in the stretched moments before he left consciousness focused every ounce of his bared soul into her dark eyes, eyes of which no one had bothered meeting with any sincerity prior to this morning in the garden. Forever after this moment, an enduring and sounding tie existed between them. They ran away together that afternoon. They moved to the country, married, worked, saved, learned, moved to the city, built a life together, which for all intents and purposes would look a bit ordinary. And within what came to be an otherwise unexceptional life together, they gave birth to a son. He was almost entirely a shy and introverted boy, one who spent his childhood in a general state of constant observation. Emil von Herkomer, in his ubiquitous silence, came upon his own sense of self-awareness with a click, when one evening he overheard the story of his parents' meeting. This story sat with him all his days, and with it, he was convinced he was the end result of countless meaningful coincidences. He carried all this inside everywhere he went, and it was frequently the thing that saved him from severe discomfort when he found himself in the company of more than one stranger. One day, while resorting again to remind himself of his hidden source of redemption, he came to gaze upon the profile of a striking young woman. Delicate in both feature and gesture, she had a potency to her eyes similar to what he imagined was shared between his parents that day in the garden. He instinctually positioned himself in such a way as to observe her unnoticed and hurriedly took in the details of her mannerisms. His heart and mind raced between compulsion and calculation, until she seemed to glance in his direction, and after pretending to tie his shoe, he stiffly walked in the opposite direction. Emil soon found out her name was Edwina Stendhal, daughter of Tungsten Stendhal, a local magistrate. Mr. Stendhal was known for his oppressive conservatism and like of fine timepieces. When he was not administering the law, he was disassembling, repairing, and rebuilding these tiny marvels of precision. So occupied with these two things was he, that it drove his wife to madness. Very few people met her, and Edwina only learned the most fundamental things about her by reading the diary she left behind after her death. Years passed, and Emil's certainty that Edwina was to be the one for him grew, and so as to draw courage from his lifelong belief that he too was fated for great and meaningful love, he approached her on his 17th birthday. On this day, which happened to fall on the annual harvest festival of his city, amongst the throngs of people he spotted her sitting on a curb looking introspective. A staggering tension overtook him as he approached. He felt himself suddenly dazed and salivating, but collected his senses enough to draw courage from her sullen state. He knelt beside her, stared meaningfully into her eyes, and tried to summon forth every ounce of his soul. When this didn't appear to inspire any notable response in Edwina, Emil fell to confessing their being meant to be together, with a series of disjointed and seemingly unrelated set of proofs. There was then a great pause, and Edwina, not looking particularly shocked or affected, said what amounted to, "Okay." Emil, deflated, embarrassed, and exhausted, sat beside her and assumed a similar position on the curb. He had no way of knowing that her mother had died that day, and she had still yet to process any of it. They sat there in these unflattering and uncomfortable costumes until it became night, and as the lamps were lit, they turned to each other, shared equally awkward smiles, and left without speaking. As strange as it was for her, she could clearly sense a feeling of kindness from him. She was, however, not the only one to notice this. In his office, above the awkward encounter, a member of the clergy and friend to Mr. Stendhal watched Emil's attempt at something terribly sincere. Prone to judgment and disdain, this inelegant man brought the incident to the attention of his superior, who, upon hearing that the von Herkomer boy made this desperate proposal to Stendhal's only daughter on this day, found great irony in it. The elder clergyman found it absurd because he had thought to arrange a marriage between his son and the girl some time ago, and after these two over-particular men had their laugh at Emil's predicament, it was decided they would solicit their connection at the draft office to call up Emil's number. He was sent to the front lines of a most wicked and dreadful war, and as you can imagine, Emil felt as if he were in a waking dream, a nightmare, of which he was mistakenly placed as his fate was undoubtedly elsewhere. Walking on this foreign soil, with these strange young men, handling his rifle as if it were a snake thrust in his arms, it was not long into the platoon's first skirmish that he found himself critically wounded. Amongst the shouts and hurriedness and the leaping bits of dirt where bullets rained down, the one that pierced his chest nearly went unnoticed. Emil slowly set down his rifle, sat against a horse that lay at his feet, and all but a bit of sky with an unusual cloud formation above him fell out of focus. At this precise moment, countless miles away, Edwina lay in the grass on a sunny day while her cousins played. With her eyes narrowing, lazily gazing upward at passing clouds and letting the trite conversations of her cousins wash over her, she breathed in the weight of the sun's heat. It pushed her gently down into the grass and lulled her into a space in between, and as her eyes closed completely, she began to stretch and grow. She leaned her back against the church behind her, and after a few deep, slow inhales, she opened her eyes again. Her cousins were no longer at play, but had begun bringing her gifts and stretching out her enormous diary. They brought her her quill and waited dutifully to see how they could help next. With rough strokes, she started sketching chariots that would send aid into the world where it was needed most. One after the other, she would send them out with a trail of tiny clouds in their wake, though from where she sat there was no telling if they met their intended destination. They did not, but the clouds did. They rose high into the sky and strained themselves to fuse with the clouds Emil, whose vision was now constrained to a long, dark tunnel, was fixed on. Sinking ever deeper into this shaft of darkness, the bright disk of light at its end grew smaller and smaller, when, with a flash and high-pitched ring, he was suddenly and forcibly propelled towards the now swirling, now incandescent clouds. When he arrived, the light at the end of the tunnel came into focus as the mouth of an enormous cavern. He found that he was firmly seated in a rowboat, oars in hand. His father stood on the shore and, with music in his voice, seemed to direct him to its immense opening. With him stood another man, which Emile recognized as himself, but much older, and at their feet was his son. And though he did not remember having one, it was him all the same. He paddled into open water and surveyed the shores, where he saw a great deal of activity along a paved inlet. Platoon after platoon were loading themselves into boats. The line of men stretched as far as he could see, and boat after boat was being filled. The men all took the same route out to sea, rowing with synchronized calm intent, and Emile was drawn in to take a closer look. At first he went unnoticed, matching their pace and stroke. Then, one by one, the men in the boats became aware of Emile's presence and stopped their rowing. He too stopped, and was suddenly conscious that he was the only one in his very own boat. Feeling all these eyes on him made him very agitated, and reminded him that he was still not where he was supposed to be. His brow furrowed, and he felt himself exhale with great force. Thoughts of Edwina grew with velocity, and a sensation that ran from his forehead to the base of his spine caused him to brace his arms to the oars. He watched his hands begin to pulse and grow with sinew as he took hold, and with one great pull of the oars he broke the ranks of the other men. He felt the strength he had never had in his arms, and fired backward propelling strokes with a motion that shot from his neck the balls of his feet. The ocean swelled and churned in response with each contact with the oars. But this only caused Emile to row harder so as to cut a line through the waves. Every ounce of Emile's being was present and engaged. He shot row after row with the oars, each with more effort and concentration, so much so that he nearly missed the shore as it dropped off the horizon far in the distance. He had left the docks with such tremendous force that the other boats ran aground and smashed into the harbor. His suddenly explosive exit was such a disruption that the lines to the boats temporarily halted while these poor souls, without protest, sank to the bottom of the dark water. It was only after some time, when the waters became calm again, did the men resume their pace, and Emile found himself alone on the open ocean. Scanning the horizon, he spotted a piece of land in the opposite direction and made towards it. The moment his foot hit the sand, he froze. Perched there on a branch was the most intimidating figure Emile had ever encountered. With dull orange skin and a menacing build, the creature quickly whipped his neck forward, and his long, oil-black hair snatched a branch below him. It wound around it, and he swung himself in one motion to land an enormous fist squarely on his head. He was plunged into a darkness without end, but began to thrash and kick about the emptiness in fierce, frustrated protest. Baring his teeth, shaking his head violently, clawing in all directions, eyes closed, now snarling and swirling about, working himself into a total and utter frenzy, and at its height, flung into his mind and filling it with a searing glory, was a flash of her image as he had once seen her, as he had always meant to see her, and at the revelation of her image he began to picture how he had meant to see himself for her. A better version of himself where all his most virtuous parts rushed to the surface to be met by her. He lingered there in the warm glow of what felt like deliverance, and there was a slow and seeping certainty that filled within him. And with this sense of feeling protected, he felt himself transformed, somehow removed from the previous dangers he had encountered. With all notions of fear or confusion melting away, he stepped forward with a new confidence, and in doing so noticed high above him a light that began to grow brighter. At first he was unable to make out what it was he was looking at, but as his eyes adjusted he saw before him a great panel of enormous beings. Each was distinctive in character and somehow familiar, and all slowly acknowledged him in their own way. They then exchanged meaningful looks amongst themselves, and in coming to some subtle agreement, one of them motioned and a path appeared to the side of where Emile stood. Emile replied with a small nod and began walking, and as the darkness gave way to light, he felt himself soften, half out of a sense of peace and half from exhaustion. The light grew and grew until he noticed grass beneath his feet and a warm wind on his face. He walked and found himself in a lush landscape and walked to the top of a small hill. He tried to recount all that had happened to him, as he felt that it was now over, but somehow it all seemed less important than this place that he had arrived at. He walked and just breathed, and with a nearly unnoticeable smile on his lips, he touched his face, he felt his brow, felt his heart, and closed his eyes, and with a long, slow exhale and the smallest of tears, Emil evaporated and joined the air.
May 17th, 1907. Dear Jedediah, the postino gave me your letter dated April 1st, in which you ask him for a pen pal, 20 gold coins, and inquire about our Savior Jesus. I think he gave your letter me because I tell him I am working to make gold with my chemistry set. Besides, he was in good mood today. I only had to bribe him for 20 lira to get our mail the afternoon. Also, he know my English is very great. I learned in school. 20 gold coins is much money. What do you do with it? It's okay. If I make gold, I share. And yes, we do have Savior Jesus here. Did you not know him was Italian? I am sending you photo also. I'm sure will be important for scientific journals in America if I'm succeed. No, when I am succeed making chemistry set gold. Oh, one more question. Where is Utah, and when you say you are Mormon, what does this mean? Your friend and humble servant, Fayum. June 23rd, 1907. Dear Jedediah, I have not heard from you, but it is okay. I think I write you anyway and tell you a little bit about me. I am born Tunisia, but have been living in Florence since I am small boy. Here is photo of our city. It is very beautiful here. The tower is very tall, tallest maybe in all of Italy. I like to take photos with a large heavy camera, but my main love is chemistry. I want to make gold and help the world. My father, he is in advertising. He used to work as director of creativity at one of the largest advertising factories in all of Italy, but now he has his own advertising factory. Here is photo. They manufacture advertisements using the power of steam. And here is my photo of my father's advertising. It is for very famous brand of coconut here in Italy, maybe most famous. Coconut company is nice. They gave father a pet monkey for me. I send you photo of him. He is funny. This is ad for soap. Soap company built fountain for village and then put ad on it for soap. Maybe same as like in America. Soap is actually pretty good. Do you have soap where you live? This is my mother. She liked to lie on daybed and look at me forlornly and quizzically. This is my sister. She is annoying. I think she only talks to me because she wants I make her gold. But I talk to her too because she have a very beautiful friend. Her name is Miranella. I have a very large love for her in my heart. And sometimes in my tunic. I don't tell her yet. It's secret. But I can tell you because you are far away. This is my brother. He is competitive sheep herder. He is not home very much. He is often traveling, often competing, but he is very great. Top 10 in Italy. Maybe he go to Olympics next year. Maybe he win medal. Here herding is very popular. Do you have sheep where you live? Or maybe you have coconuts. Let me know. Your faithful friend and servant, Fayum. August 12th, 1907. Hello, Jedediah. It seems like it takes a long time for letters to travel where you are. It's okay. Not to worry, I am sending you more photos of our town while I wait for your replies. This is one of the city gates. You can see the tower in the town square. Nice, no? This gate is one of the tallest in Italy. Well, I'm not sure. For sure, though, it's the tallest in our town, by far. By the way, Monkey was in this photo, but then he run off, so I take photo of woman instead. Here is another town gate. Gate not so tall, but tower very tall and big. Maybe the biggest in Italy, not sure. But when I was young, I used to go to the top and fill sheep's bladders with water and throw them at the olive sellers. That was my destructive time in my life, like devil. Now I make happy time. And science. I'm sure I will be famous one day. Gold experiments are going okay, No gold yet, but I did make a very hot and roaring mixture like liquid lion. Here's the new shopping plaza. It's called Florence Center. There's new store there, Benetton and Sons. I don't understand their advertising, but clothes are good. Maybe my father can explain me sometimes. This is where the Emperor of the world is living. His name is Saint Pius X. I think he is also the Pope. He's a very powerful man, and has very big house. And I saved the best for last. Since 1 year we have McDonald's in Florence. Yes, I know. People are standing in line going crazy for French fries. I can tell by the sign that General MacDonald is a great warrior. I'm glad he conquered France and brought back their fries. They're delicious. Do you have General McDonald's where you live? Oh, silly question, no? General McDonald's is a very American restaurant. Of course you must have. Your kind and faithful servant, Fayoum. September 30th, 1907. Jedediah, maybe it takes letters a really long time to travel to where you are. I don't know. Are you still interested in being pen pals? Have not heard from you since your first letter. It's long time. Have you been eaten by tigers? Here are 2 more photos. This one is the grand hall of our home. The pulpit on the right is where my father stands when he has important things to tell us, or when we has done something wrong. This other one is our dining room. My favorite thing to eat here is spaghetti bolognese and olives, since I am friends with the olive sellers again. Do you have tigers where you live? YF and HS, Fayoum. October 19th, 1907. Dear Jedediah, so great it is to receive your letter. I spoke with our postino, and he advised me, for a small fee, that it takes a letter 6 weeks to reach the land of Utah. I mean, yes, sometimes it takes that long for a letter to get here from Rome, but I thought it to Great America it would certainly be sent instantly via telegraph. I learned this is not the case. I am looking at the photos you sent. So good that you just happen to have a camera too. It looks very barren where you are. Is this where you live? It doesn't look like you have sheep or General McDonald's or tigers or anything, not even coconuts. It's okay, I send you. We have plenty of coconuts. Wow, Jedediah, although they are the most delicious in all of Italy, it looks like you need more than coconuts. Gold is coming soon. So this is your father? What is he looking at? If he sees a monkey, let me know. I haven't seen mine for weeks now. How long will your supplies last? Do you have enough? At least you have a sturdy-looking automobile. It looks very powerful and modern. Nice to see a photo of you too. I will also send you a comb. Oh, Jedediah, the situation there looks dire. The experiments are going better. If I can just push them a little further, I'm sure I will have gold to send very soon, so you can replenish your supplies and start to build your great city in the desert. Hang on, dear friend. I will try harder. YH and FS, Fayoum. October 23rd, 1907. Dear Jedediah, my monkey came back. At first this was good, but then something very bad happened. He thought he was a science monkey, but he was really a trouble monkey. He hit my experiment with the hammer so hard. Maybe he smashed an atom. Not sure. But the explosione was surely one of the biggest in all of Italy. The back half of our villa. She is gone. I was thrown 10 meters across the room, but did not die too badly. Monkey, not so lucky. Terrible disaster. Also not lucky was the olive warehouse next door. The blast wave was so strong that it was very badly and totally destroyed. The olive sellers hate me again. I am fear they want to crush me in their olive press and then shoot me many times, maybe 7. It's terrible. I tried to tell them it was monkey, but they no care. Even the guest house in our garden sustained damage. Family is very upset. My father says monkey was my responsibility. He stood in the pulpit in the grand hall and yelled at me for 3 hours. I was sure he would have me stoned, but it turns out I am grounded until 1912. I feel so terrible that I have let you down. I don't know what to do. I hope your family is not dead yet. I will make up to you. YFS, Fayoum. December 4th, 1907. Dear Jedediah, the postino just delivered your telegram for a not insignificant fee, so there is such a thing. Yes, our villa is being rebuilt and my wounds are healing. Thank you for asking. And thank you for your condolences. Monkey funeral was very sad. Many crying monkeys with handkerchiefs. Unfortunately, I am still grounded, and I found out that Olive Mafia truly wants me for death. A friend informed me that they wish to bury me in this pit after they have death me. It is a very nice pit, but not to be at the bottom of. Very dark is time here. Your humble friend and servant, Fayoum. December 25th, 1907. Dear Jedediah, your latest telegram has shocked me very much. When you say your letters were joke, what does this mean? And what is April Fool Day? So you are not really Mormon? Everything is coming apart at my seams. Nothing is what I thought. So you really live in Nevada? Yes, living in the desert without alcohol would be very boring. And yes, the saloons do look very lively there. And your family owns a mine? I very much appreciate your invitation. Yes, maybe working chemistry there would be a very good job for me. And Comstock does sound like a good mine name. This is all very interesting. Okay, I will do it. Life is death for me here now. Expect me in Nevada in 6 weeks' time. I will disappear like a sausage, as we say in Italy, and leave tonight. Your grateful friend and soon-to-be famous scientific servant, Fayoum.